Good afternoon. My name is Nancy Shaw, and I live in Vancouver. I am here on behalf of the elephants at the Oregon Zoo, in particular, Chendra and Paki. I stand at the zoo with my elephants.com sign and talk to attendees about the two sanctuaries available to elephants in America, Paws in California and the Elephant Sanctuary in Tennessee. The elephants Sabu, Prince, and Tina, bred here in this zoo, were sent to these wonderful places. Both Tina and Sabu have since died from symptoms developed in zoos. When was the last time you attended the zoo? Go with eyes as though you were to be incarcerated there with no chance of parole. Go and ask other attendees what they think of the animals and how they are being kept in small, concrete prison cells. Look at the warthogs and their neighbors in their postage stamp enclosure of mud and squalor. Go and wonder why people ask me if the chimps are drugged and have to stop the urge to begin sobbing at the sight of the polar bear. I am here to appeal to the better side of humankind, your better side. We all make a choice of doing good or harm. Think of the legacy you could leave your personal families and our community as members of this council. All you have to do is contact Paws and the Elephant Sanctuary and ask them to make arrangements to move Paki and Chendra. They will do all the work and you get to be superheroes. Chendra must have been one of the last wild-born elephants captured and deported here to the USA and Oregon. She has no relationship with the other female elephants. You, members of the Metro Council, have the influence to give her a wonderful life instead of a life of misery and desperation, being ostracized and alone. The zoo is proud of the elephants produced here, but that is not conservation. It is a death sentence. I made a donation to a sanctuary in northern Thailand in honor of the Oregon Zoo elephants and this council, because I know any day now you will make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott.
Today to urge you again to release the Oregon Zoo elephants to a real preserve, a retirement home that we voted for in the 2008 zoo bond measure. Has the Roslyn Lake property been purchased? If not, when will it be? And when will it be ready for the elephants to be sent there? If Metro and the zoo are not able to come up with the operating funds for the preserve soon, then the elephants, starting with the oldest Paki, should be released to a sanctuary now. A 6-acre expansion, even if all 6 acres were actually designated for the elephants, is not enough space for a herd of 8 elephants. Paki turns 51 this month, and when I visit the zoo, I see him pacing in circles and banging his head on the door to the barn. This is not the behavior of an animal who is happy and thriving, as the zoo director claims. Kim Smith is not alone in claiming that our elephants are happy and thriving. It turns out this language is a direct quote, a dictate from the AZA, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, for all zoo directors to use to describe their elephants. AZA is the same organization that pulled its accreditation of the Toronto Zoo for daring to authorize the release of Toronto's 3 elderly elephants to sanctuary. The same organization that claims a 2-car garage is sufficient space to house an elephant. The same organization with members that state that circuses are a fine place for elephants to be, and in fact, approves the sale of elephants by zoos to circuses. The AZA also claims that zoos are conserving elephant species by breeding them. However, the fact is that births do not keep up with deaths in zoos, and the elephants are bred into a life of captivity. They are seldom, if ever, returned to the wild. Yes, baby elephants bring in money for the zoo, but over 20 zoos have already closed their elephant exhibits, and those zoos are still open for business and able to draw in plenty of visitors. It is time to question the authority of an organization that clearly does not have the elephants' best interests at heart. We and our representatives here on the Metro Council need to look at what is the best course of action for the elephants, not the one sanctioned by the decades of wrong-headed and inhumane regulations. The voters trusted that the zoo and Metro would do the right thing when we voted for the zoo bond measure in 2008. That trust needs to be honored now in 2013 by releasing the elephants as soon as possible so that at last they can enjoy some freedom before they die. And finally, I ask you to provide a response to my concerns today. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Holenstein?
Testimony from Christopher Lambert Holenstein, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, Gresham, Oregon. As a practicing veterinarian for 20 years, I know that animals need a habitat that is large enough to allow some freedom to roam. Apartment cats have more than 800 square feet. Dogs need a yard. Elephants need so much more. That is why I am urging you to act in a timelier manner to provide the 8 elephants at the Oregon Zoo with the space necessary for their mental and physical health. Elephants travel for many miles in the wild, and that amount of movement keeps their feet and joints in good shape. When they are confined to a small space on hard, compacted substrates, as they are currently at the Oregon Zoo, their feet and joints suffer, and so does their mental health. Elephants are some of the most intelligent creatures on Earth. They need stimulation. Instead, they are often seen pacing and performing other stereotypic behaviors which are due to stress and boredom. The voters passed and are paying for a $125 million bond measure to in part create a large off-site facility that would more accurately reflect the environment that elephants need to thrive. That was in 2008. Now it is 2013. And we are still waiting for that facility to be opened. If Metro and the Zoo Foundation are unable to provide the operating funding for this space in the near future, then I urge you to release the elephants to a sanctuary that can meet their needs now, while they are especially older than them, still able to enjoy the quality of life. Portland is a progressive city that loves animals. I think it is time we live up to that reputation and release the elephants to a preserve or a sanctuary. Dr. Chris Holenstein, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. John Lambert Holenstein, testimony regarding the Oregon Zoo elephants. I teach children in the Portland public school system. A lesson that is important to convey to children is respect for all life, including for animals. To achieve this respect, children need to see and understand the natural behaviors of animals. What do children learn about elephants here at the Oregon Zoo? That it's okay to be kept in a small space so the elephants have little choice in how they spend their day. Their head bobbing and pacing in circles are natural behaviors for elephants. The voters in Portland passed a $125 million bond measure that was to be used for zoo additions and to create an off-site preserve for the elephants. I ask you to move forward in a faster pace to achieve this goal. Packy turns 51 this month, and he continues to spend his day pacing in a constricted area. All the elephants can look across their yard and see that there is nothing to do on the other side, so they often just stand or pace in a circular path. I urge you to treat the children of Portland with respect by honoring the needs of these elephants. Send them to sanctuary now if the zoo is not able to establish an off-site facility soon. If the off-site facility is set up with cameras, the children can view elephants in a more natural setting and learn how elephants really behave. Or if the preserve is open for visitors during certain times, they can visit and see them. We want to teach children the truth about the lives of animals. That is the only way they can learn to truly appreciate and respect them for who they really are. And as they are forced to be in an unnatural and confined environment, send the elephants to the preserve a sanctuary. Now, my testimony, Cherry Lambert Holenstein, is real quick. 2008, the voters trusted you, and they approved of the bond measure you asked of them. 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. Aren't you a little bit embarrassed by not honoring the voters' commitment? Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Ms. Joe?
Jones,
Jones, okay.
Metro Council. I'm here today to speak on behalf of the 8 elephants that are currently residing on 1.2 acres of space at the Oregon Zoo. I would just like to advocate that Packy, who's now 51, who's spent a life of isolation, be sent to pause in California so he can feel trees, touch grass, and actually commune with other elephants. I know he's got a relationship with Bob Lee, and Bob could go visit him. But Packy needs other elephants. You know, Packy needs to be able to commune with his own species. And he's brought in so much money for this city. I think the city really owes it to him to give him a first-class retirement in beautiful, sunny, warm California, where Asian elephants, you know, the warmer climate is actually beneficial for them. I would like to know, has the Rosalind Lake property been purchased? And if not, why not? I also would like to know the fate of Sam. I want to know if Sam is going to be purchased and be a permanent family member of our herd. I do not want to see him traded off or sold off or be just used, tucked away as a you know, be tucked away in this offsite preserve and not have any family ties. He needs to be, you know, I don't want him give him back to the circus, okay? So I want to make sure what's going to happen to Sam. I want to make sure what's going to happen to Chandra. How many times has she been, you know, gone through the process of trying to get pregnant? I know they're currently trying to breed her. They've been trying to breed her for a long time. How many times has this little elephant gone through that process? I would like to know that number. And overall, what will happen to all the rest of the babies that are currently being born at the zoo? We have, since 2008, there's been 2 more babies brought onto that property. So since there is no current on-site expansion or off-site expansion, nobody's broken dirt yet, I advocate that no more babies are brought into that space. We have 1.2 acres of land. If there's any more breeding, that shows total disregard for the health and the emotional welfare of these animals. Okay? No more breeding babies on 1.2 acres of land. We want to make sure Lily is going to be okay and not be used just as, like I said, a golden uterus before. We want to make sure that Packy, like I said, gets the retirement he deserves.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next panel would be, is it Nader, Zimmer, Sid Most, Cindy Kozik? I'm butchering some of these names. Nancy Newell. We lost somebody, or we missed somebody. Okay, there they go. Thanks. Didn't mean to make you go around the long way. Okay, Ms. Zimmer?
afternoon. This is going to be very brief. Just wanted to say that it's long, long overdue for these elephants to be released to a sanctuary. And as we all know, elephants do not belong in zoos, as many of the zoos have already concluded and have closed their elephant exhibits. And that's all I have to say, very brief.
Thank you. Ms. Most? Is it Must or Most? Thank you.
My name is Sid Most. I want to thank the panel for hearing us today. I want to double whatever has been said up until now, and I don't have a prepared speech, but I'm so old, I wanted to tell you that I remember the day when you could go into a zoo and touch the elephants. And I was feeling so uncomfortable as a kid anyway, and I thought, why can't they be back where they belong? So my appeal is really, really emotional. What I know is, as an animal advocate all my life, is that I have valued these elephants so highly in my estimation of what is an ideal species. I would say, why don't we model them? Because in the wild, in Africa and India, the females actually raise the babies for 2 years, and all they do is play and touch. And so if you don't like your mom, you can go to your aunt. And they learn that. Then after 2 years, the males come in, and they teach them survival skills. So that here we have a society, if you will, because there's a glass ceiling now between us and other species, and I'm going to live long enough to put a hole in it. Then they live perfectly if they're given the wild that they were evolved into, to go at least 30 miles a day. They stay together. What an ideal society when you think about it. What are we talking about now amongst ourselves and 8 billion people on the earth? We keep reinventing the solutions for terrible problems that we have. So I've got to say, why don't we look at these models and copy them? But how can we teach the children if the only models they can see are in confinement? And every time I've been to the zoo, and I've been in Oregon 29 years, Packy personally has looked sadder and sadder and sadder. This is how far out I am because I'm from California. I hired a psychic to come and visit Packy, and she said he's so depressed, an animal communicator. He's so depressed that he can't even connect with us. So I would do anything. One more thing on NPR. For what it's worth, they did a study from the United Nations throughout Europe and throughout the United States. There seems to be a pattern there. And they said people in Europe are willing to sacrifice and invest in the greater good, but Americans are not. So why don't we start and reverse that trend too and do something at least for Packy? Because I'm getting old. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Kochi, Cindy? Kochi.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for letting us speak today. I'm Cindy from Beaverton, and before that, I was a resident of Hillsborough for 20 years. Mr. Hughes, you might be interested to know that my children attended Mentor Bridge, J.B. Thomas, and all graduated from Hillsborough High School. Growing up with a family of 4 kids, we were financial supporters of the zoo. The zoo lights, the summer concerts, the train rides was all a lot of fun. We spent many summer days at the zoo, gazing and loving the animals. And I myself am a Portland gal, and I remember when Packy was born, although I'm not that old. We would frequently visit, and I remember my children posing the question about strange behaviors of the animals, of the pacing of the wolves, the circles, the chimps, eating their own poop, the polar bears sleeping all day for lack of stimulation, the big cats pacing, being really bored, also sleeping all day for lack of stimulation, the majestic elephants pacing, being cramped in cages with no place to walk, which is usually 40 miles a day for them, is typically what they do in the wild. I answered the questions and said, as a society, we grossly underestimate both the scope and the scale of animal intelligence. But I still bought into the idea of what the zoo calls conservation. I've had a huge awakening, a real paradigm shift. After much research and a lot of hard thinking, I've come to the conclusion that what we are allowing to happen to the animals, specifically Packy, that's who I'm speaking for today, is cruel to treat any other living sentient beings as though their well-being and their lives mean less to them than they do to us. I think it's cruel and arrogant for us to use them for means of profit. And I have 2 questions I want to leave you with. I'd like you to comment then, if we still have time. Is it justifiable? Is it okay that Packy's just been standing around for 50 years in the same cage? And what do you think he is thinking every day, every minute? I see no happiness in his life. There's no more light. I even remember that when my family was growing up. There was no light. There was no expression on his face. I think he's hurting, and I would like to see him retired. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Newell?
I'm to testify on behalf of Packy and also on the program's supporting preservation and also representing the public interest. We may be a few people here, but the bond measure was voted on a large number of the population in the metro area. And the intent is clear of the public interest that a preserve be found, and also that the treatment of Packy be humane and reasonable and easily done, and all those can easily be answered by this council because there is a sanctuary available at, you could just walk down and make a phone call, and Packy would be in a much healthier place. So I don't understand the reticence of council. You are the legal, the elected officials, and you are the legal oversight for the bond measure that the public interest was deeply expressed. That's why I can't understand why when we requested recently, about 4 weeks ago, the public records for his health condition, and we got an answer that you would have to pay about $400 for some deeper details, but we could get some of that information if it was in the public interest. Well, I think the Metro needs to remind the people that work at the zoo that the public has indicated their interest. They're spending their money for a bond that's not being used in the best interest of the animals that are suffering. So what's your point? So I would like some emphasis from you that this information be provided quickly. There are lawsuits in LA regarding all these kinds of issues. They're succeeding on behalf of the elephants, and if we have to go to that route, we very well will. But why do you want that as a dark mark on your record? As the representatives and supposed to support public interest when they've already voted, why not just act? We've been waiting for it for a considerable amount of time. It's very difficult to view Packy. I'll just tell you that I can tell his hip on one of his legs is in very bad shape. They made us wait an hour when they promised we could see Packy pretty quickly in the morning. We couldn't get to see him the day before. There's limited sight of him. His birthday is coming up. There's a huge celebration for his 50th birthday. I think his birthday gift would be the sanctuary, and I think it's totally appropriate to announce it on his birthday if you really mean what you're supposed to be doing on this Metro People's Council. This is not just an isolated situation. This is a very well studied. We continue to pursue, we will grow in numbers, and this will be done, but we'd like to see Packy have some recourse to the sense that he has a body that is honored, a soul that is honored, a beauty that is honored, instead of degraded by all these inactions on part of Metro and the zoo. Thank you.
Thank you. The final two on this topic, at least, are Betty Stefik and Rebecca Sylvie.
Good day, Council. My name is Bette Steflik, and I live in the city of Portland. I went to the zoo March 12th of this year to meet a friend. I saw the cute baby Lily, her mom, her Auntie Chandra, and one of the younger males. And then after some to-do, Packy was let out in the pen, front pen. The last time I saw him was 2007, and what I saw in March, I was shocked. I saw an animal that looks older than his age, an animal that looks sad and has no vitality, no muscle tone, an animal that is in pain, favoring his right leg. I see an elephant who has been in service to the city of Portland for 51 years. He and the other elephants have been the main attraction of the Oregon Zoo, building the reputation, the attendance, and the coffers, sustaining the zoo. Every being has a right to retire, and it's Packy's time. He's done his job. It is evident in his health. It is evident in his frame of mind. It's been documented, the needs of elephants, the amount of space they require to roam and forage, and the Oregon Zoo is insufficient. It's been documented that standing long periods of time on concrete is damaging to their feet. It's been documented that the Oregon Zoo has euthanized elephants at the zoo because of this condition. It's been documented there is a precedence. It has been documented. A decision to retire Packy is a moral decision. You can never fully repay. A decision to allow him to live in freedom is a compassionate decision. You can never fully repay him for all his years of service and for the freedom he has never experienced, but you can at least allow that he be transported to Paws, a preserve in California. This would be the honorable payback, letting him live his days in peace and freedom. It is a moral decision I ask you to consider and use your heart. Over 20 zoos have now closed their elephants exhibits, including San Francisco, Chicago, and Detroit, and yet these zoos are still open and thriving. It's time for the Oregon Zoo to recognize what more and more zoos do, that elephants need more space than zoos can provide. We voted for the bond measure to help the elephants get that space, and recently we discovered that the offsite preserve is going to be utilized as a breeding facility. This is not what we voted for. We voted for a place that the elephants could retire to, so I urge you to have the zoo revise their vision to match what the original intent of the bond. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Sylvie?
So Packy's birthday is coming up, and he will be turning 51 on April 14th. He's been in captivity since he was born. That's tragic. In 2008, Portlanders voted on retiring Packy, or at least giving more room for the elephants to roam. Is that ever going to happen? I urge you to please release not only Packy, but all of the elephants to a sanctuary. Give them the happiness and freedom they should have always had. Thank you.
Thank you.